everyone, my name is Allyson DeMerlis and I'm a PhD student at the University of Miami Rosenstiel School for Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. I study coral reef ecosystems and I'm specifically interested in how corals respond to environmental stressors, such as rising ocean temperatures, and specifically how corals can be resilient to some of these stressors. Today, I wanted to give you a brief introduction on coral reef ecosystems and discuss why they are important and what corals actually are. But first, I wanted to give you a brief glimpse into what a coral reef really looks like. This video was filmed in the Florida Keys, and I want you to take note of all the different organisms you see and try to spot all of the corals that you can find. Take a look. So you may have noticed in that video that there is a lot of activity going on the coral reef itself. There's a lot of different kinds of fish swimming around the corals. There's different sea fans and soft corals that are swaying with the currents. And there's just overall a lot more activity than you would expect. Coral reef ecosystems are very busy and bustling ecosystems full of a lot of biodiversity. The first coral that you may have noticed was this very impressive elkhorn coral, or Acropora palmata. And this is one of the two key branching species of coral that you can find in the Florida Keys and the Caribbean. However, these are also one of the species that are in major declines due to different environmental stressors in recent decades. When you think of a coral reef ecosystem, you typically picture an island or tropical area that has crystal clear blue waters and is just very warm and lovely to visit all year round. And that's no surprise for corals because they actually prefer these kinds of environments and they have a very specific temperature threshold in which they can survive. Not only do corals have temperature thresholds in which they need to meet, but they also require a certain amount of light energy, which is why the coral reefs are found in relatively shallow environments. That elkhorn coral you saw in the video was only at about 12 feet deep or so. And that's because corals actually have a symbiotic relationship with a photosynthetic algae that lives inside the coral's tissues. So the corals themselves are not photosynthetic because corals are animals that are actually related to jellyfish and sea anemones. But they have this algae that lives inside their tissues that photosynthesizes to create sugars and energy for the corals. So why is it important to mention that they prefer a certain temperature and a certain light intensity? Well, I'm sure you've heard by now about some coral bleaching events that have been happening across the globe, specifically in the Florida Keys, in the Great Barrier Reef, and in Hawaii. Coral bleaching events are becoming more and more common in recent years as ocean temperatures continue to rise and overall climate change is causing the atmospheric temperature to rise steadily. This is a photo that I took from that same reef in the Florida Keys. The photo is depicting another type of branching coral that you can find called Acropora cervicornis, or staghorn coral. As you can see in this photo, the whole coral colony has been turned white, and that is because of the coral bleaching phenomenon. There's a lot of doom and gloom in marine biology research nowadays, but I wanted to end on a more positive note and talk about what scientists and practitioners are attempting to do as we speak. Coral reefs, while in major declines, are now a hot topic in restoration efforts. So a lot of researchers, including myself, are interested in studying how we can restore these environments and save the corals in general. There are a lot of different groups in the Florida Keys that are working to restore our coral reefs by rebuilding the reefs one coral at a time. And a lot of these coral colonies that you can find while snorkeling or scuba diving are actually restored coral populations. So there's definitely some hope. And I hope that today, in learning a little bit more about coral reef ecosystems, you've become inspired and motivated to follow your own passion in science as well.